Welcome to another edition of Beyond the Game, presented by TV Sports. I'm your host, Stephen Hayes, and today our guest is Seth Horwitz. Seth is an Emmy Award-winning content producer, formerly for ESPN, but he's been a part of some of the main shows that you've watched when it comes to the ESPN. Seth, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here, Stephen.
I appreciate you for taking the time to come on today. I mentioned, obviously, just now that you award-winning content producer. So I would love to backtrack and go from how you got to the point that you are today. Where did it all start for you?
I think I was really lucky. So in college, I was sports director of the radio station, and I wrote the sports column for the newspaper. I grew up in Chicago, and there was a sports statistic company that happened to be based, that's incorporated, like 20 minutes from where I grew up. So high school, college, I was working for them. So I was gaining a lot of different experience. And where I feel very fortunate was that when I graduated college, the pandemic was not happening. There was none of that craziness. And at that time, ESPN was hiring people as temporary production assistants. And so it could be people fresh off college or people just trying to break into the business. And what it was a 7-month program. And after 6 months, they were going to decide if they were going to keep you on full time or maybe it just wasn't working out. And so I knew I was 21 years old. Here I am, ESPN. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to have kind of 6 months here to state my case, to learn a lot and hopefully be good enough. I was like, whatever they give me, I'm going to do. I just want to earn my keep. And very quickly, all of us, we're in the fire. We're doing work for SportsCenter. We're producing highlights that are hitting, at the top of the show and working with Dan Patrick and Stuart Scott and Rich Eisen. And it blew me away coming from a small college and doing a radio show where my friends were listening. And that was it. To all of a sudden being in the big time and learning so much. And it was always at the beginning very open with our editors and letting people know, hey, I'm brand new. You know way more than me. Help me learn because I want to get better. I wasn't thinking, oh, I know everything. I knew I didn't. And was doing SportsCenter highlights for a few years and then got a great opportunity. They were launching the TV simulcast of Mike and Mike. And I was a part of that from the beginning. And that started really small. Very few people on the staff. We didn't even have a control room. It was basically almost like people probably, if they think of a garage band, we were super small. But what's fun with that was we could really grow. And at first, if the show was doing a remote broadcast, we couldn't even put it on TV. We didn't have the budget. So like the first full year of the simulcast, Super Bowl week, they're at the Super Bowl, no shows on TV, couldn't afford it. But we got there. We started on ESPN News. We moved it up to ESPN2. We started doing all the shows on the road or not. We got a real control room. And I started producing the TV side of that. It was on the show for almost 12 years. And it was wonderful working really closely with Mike and Mike, two great people, so many wonderful guests on the show. And that it was how a lot of people started their day. And that was a lot of fun. It was a part of people's routine. And I felt very lucky. And then in 2016, changed over, went back to SportsCenter at night. And in that fall started what we called the launch of the sound unit. And what we did was all the press conferences and interviews that athletes and coaches were conducting, we were transcribing, we were logging so that then when content was running on SportsCenter, people knew all the best bites that were being said. For our producers, reporters, they didn't have to go back and log anymore. We were doing the work for them, so that really helped. And it would help digital and social, just like, hey, here's what's good. And work with the PAs to recognize what's strong sound, what is great and what is sometimes less important, because recognizing what's good is so important, whether it's awesome video, must see video, must hear sound, equally important. And so I did that for 4 years. And so I was very fortunate at ESPN to be a part of like 2 launches and 20 years, which was way more than I would have imagined when I started back in 2000.
Now, seeing, like you said, 20 years, seeing where you started to seeing you today, and that startup, I want to go back to that with the Mike and Mike. And you said it was kind of like a garage band style. How did that make you feel as you guys evolved? Because like you said, you went from ESPN News to ESPN2. Like, in the moment, did you realize the change as it was happening, or was it kind of now self-reflecting on everything that, because you were experiencing it as it was happening?
I thought it was good. What we did would be when people would email in when there wasn't a show and say, hey, we missed the show, we want the show. I was like, oh, that's great. So it's easy to think about what we weren't able to do. But then you're also like, oh, wait, people know this. Okay, that's good. And sometimes even you think of sports teams, when there is so much expectations, when someone's like in an off season, people think of, well, this team's going to win the title. It can put so much pressure. I think we had the opposite, which was really nice, and that we had room to grow. If we made, and we certainly did, when we made mistakes, it was okay. And I think that really helped. And we knew what we were striving toward, to say, okay, we got to get every show on. If we can get a control room, the broadcast, the show's going to be better. A larger audience on ESPN2 helped. And we also knew that we were reaching a point where for a lot of athletes, coaches, they would say they would always watch the show, which was really cool. And we knew if we were on ESPN2, it's a little bit easier to do that versus ESPN News, just in terms of how many homes it is. So you kind of keep, back in my mind, you keep thinking, what's next? Okay, what can we keep striving to reach? And that made it a lot of fun. Where if we had started it from everything at the beginning, there wouldn't be the same sense of accomplishment.
And obviously, even at the beginning, it was a small team, and then it grew as you guys, like you said, you were able to get a real control room and everything. For you personally, how important was it for you? Because Mike and Mike was one of the main things that people saw. It was the first thing in the morning that people watched or listened to. So when they were watching it, what was the main thing for you to make sure that we were getting the best? Because I was a fan, I was watching it, but that we were getting the best content possible out of the production team. What was the main focal point for you?
I think it's a combination of, you want to educate in terms of, okay, what is most important going on in the sports world, or what happened last night. Not everyone may have seen it. People going to bed. And I think equally important, entertain. You want to hopefully, enough of these days, a little bit of laughter, some smiles along the way. Inform is really, really important. That hopefully we could make people a little bit smarter, give some good food for thought, and that maybe people then could bring up discussions with their friends and their family throughout the day, and be able to do interviews right, be able to get some good interviews, hopefully learn something about people. And when you're doing a 4-hour show, that's a lot of time to work with. So you really can do a combination of, most days you're going to have maybe some that could be a little more serious. Usually most of the time, hopefully some laughter, and you can bring that in to interviews with the guests, which they're going to enjoy. And always make sure too that just the preparation and being on point with knowledge, and being able to say, okay, if we wanted to do NFL or NBA, what were the key points? What are the points moving forward? And that what's on people's mind, hopefully, is what we were discussing, so that people felt like they would want to keep watching, listening, and that we were hitting what's most important in the sports world on that day. Now,
with your 20 plus year career, and the pandemic hits us last year, and we're still in the height of it. And everything changes. It's a lot of things to overcome, a lot of things to adjust. So have you ever seen, or have you ever had to deal with anything? Obviously, the pandemic is different, but have you had to deal with anything so severe in your career?
Yeah. So the thing, being at ESPN when 9/11 happened, that was the first time where you just didn't almost know, sports stopped. You just didn't know, okay, and sports didn't feel that important. And for a few days, was going to work with very, very little to do. Now, certainly in 2020, a lot of sports stopped for months on end. So that was really different. And then when sports picked up, certainly my role, a lot of it was watching and listening to Zoom calls, and which had never happened before. But it was also with 9/11, there was a time where for some people, and certainly again in 2020, it's also making sure mentally, how are people doing? How are coworkers, knowing that there could be some really challenges in their personal life that they're doing? And certainly 9/11, that could have been the case. And then 2020 with the ongoing pandemic was just making sure that to be aware of, you don't know, in someone's family, could they have people battling COVID, and making sure that it's not just coworkers, but you have to care about each other, because there could be people going through times in which they feel very isolated and alone.
And 9/11, like you said, that was definitely a hard hitting situation for us, and the pandemic here. And for you, looking at, obviously you're in this world, but you're a sports fan. Did you realize, like, it's hard to explain it. I was talking with some friends when there were no sports happening, and I was like, I understand why they're trying to push the envelope to get sports back on, because it's really something that people can come together on. And in such a time of uncertainty, it's just one thing that, even if you're arguing about it, it's just one thing that we can collectively come together on. For you, what does sports mean to you? Like, how important is sports for you in general?
I feel that I was really lucky, because I fell in love with sports when I was just about 6 years old. Grew up in Chicago, and to age myself a little bit here, that was 1984. The Cubs won the National League East made the playoffs for the first time in 39 years. The Bears, who suddenly had a great defense, along with Walter Payton, finally the quarterback, and Jim McMahon, the Bears were becoming really good again. And then we'd go on in 1985, 15-1, win the Super Bowl. And the Bulls, that was Michael Jordan's rookie year. And the Bulls mattered, and they hadn't mattered in probably almost a decade. And so to me, sports was amazing. It was awesome, because every day there were games, and there was a history. So there were all these legends to learn about. And I remember one time watching a He-Man cartoon, and it was a repeat. I'd seen it before. And I'm like, this is terrible. I've already seen it. I want something new. In sports, there was always something new. There were always games. And that hooked me, that fascinated me, that really, in the sports calendar, there's always games going on. I wanted to learn as much present day and understand some of the greats, to be able to try to start to understand how everything came together. And seeing the passion in Chicago, which it is in so many other cities, that it also felt like, I'm like, oh, like adults enjoy this. This isn't just like, like, oh, this is my little kid's interest. Like everything, like in Chicago, like when the Bears are playing, that's everything. And it was so exciting, because obviously sports is live. So you don't know what's going to happen. And so when something great happens, it's so authentic. And from a very young age, I was hooked, and I would start each day, I'd read the sports section. And I always thought like sports was the greatest thing ever. And I feel fortunate that so many years later now, still love it. It's still, to me, wonderful. And I love that everything happens in front of us. There's so much we can debate about, but we know who won, we know who lost. And like, there's those facts. And to me, it's still terrific.
Now, are you still a diehard Chicago across the board fan? Are
Totally.
you
Yeah,
Bears, Cubs, Bulls?
it is.
Now,
And I've been lucky in that I was old enough to totally appreciate the Bulls in the 90s. So that was 6 titles. While I was young, I watched all of Super Bowl 20. Cubs in 2016. The three teams I'm passionate about, I've seen them all win. And in 2016, I was at games 4 and 5 of the World Series. So that was a bucket list come true. And so I know a lot of times fans of certain bases like to think they're tortured. I was always saying, even before the Cubs won, I'm like, Michael Jordan, the Bulls, that was 6 titles. Like, I am beyond lucky. If you're a team you're passionate about can be a dynasty, I mean, what more can you ask for? And so,
now, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so I mean, I've been in Connecticut for 20 years, but it's always bleeding in Chicago. That's always the one that can bring me the most joy. And when they're not going well, and as you know how it goes, it can bring the most pain and frustration and just all that too.
I know exactly how it goes because as good as of a rapport that we have, I am a diehard Packers fan. So
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the game on Sunday. That was fun for me.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Yeah, so but it's just one of those things, like you said, just sports being able to. It's always something to debate, and no matter how far back in history you want to go, it's a relevant topic now. Like you can bring it up, whether it's the Bulls 6 championships or could they have gotten 8 or how, it's just always something that you can debate. So I know everything that you're saying. I am a completely evolved. I mean, I have evolved now, but I'm so in tune when I watch sports. Like, you would think I'm there, but it's just, if you're a diehard sports fan, you understand it. I just wanted to talk about, in your career, with everything that you've learned and everything that the success that you've gained, and then the knowledge that you've been able to pass on to others. Some awards have come along with this journey. And can you talk to me about winning some of those awards? And you won an Emmy, correct?
I've won 2, yeah, which
You
was
won 2 Emmys. So how does that, like, when that happened, what was your thought process?
I was so blown away because I remember when SportsCenter won, I was thinking, okay, maybe I have the opportunity to like pay for a trophy, like, and everyone who worked on the show, we got one. We didn't have to pay for it, and it was a life size, like it was the real size. Like I thought, oh, maybe it'll just be some small little like candy bars. You got like the regular size, and then you got the minis. I'm like, oh, we'll probably get a mini. And always on like Halloween, you get the mini candy bars. Or like, it's something, but this was life size. And when they called me in and gave it to me, I don't have kids. I was almost like treating this as like, this is my baby. Like when I was driving home that day, I have it in my car. I was like trying to drive like super slow, make sure like I didn't get in an accident or anything. Cause I'm like, if anything happens, you can't get another one. You can't go back and be like, right. So that was great. I got a little dinged up, right? You can just give me a second one or whatnot.
Right.
And so holding it, I was like, to me, I'm like, it made it all worth it. I'm like, okay, this is moving out to Connecticut, like working, all sorts of like weird and different hours. I was like, I'm blessed. Like this made it worth it. Like I can say that I was able to be fortunate enough to be blessed with this success, that it was like, this was the kind of the lifelong journey that really started when I was 6. And now I can say I have this. I'm like, it's kind of, when a dream can come true like that, you just say, you do want to take a step back and just be so appreciative, so grateful.
And that is an amazing accomplishment, for you to I'm happy for you that you won it, because that is not an everyday thing. It's not an everyday thing. And like you said, it's not like if you damage it, you can just go back and say, hey, so, do you kind of have these on deck, or, so it's not one of those things. It's something that I do feel you should cherish. And I wanted to know if I could just get some words of encouragement from you. For anybody who's aspiring doctor, lawyer, athlete, content creator, anybody, what words of encouragement could you give them?
Absolutely. And right now, we're still in a pandemic, and I know times are really hard for people, but it's not always going to be this way. I truly believe we're going to reach a point, probably be summertime, things are going to get a lot better. And I think it's so important for people, especially now, to just keep developing their voice, because everybody has a voice. And if they're building that and developing that, there's going to be coming a time, certainly I believe in 2021, where we're going to need interesting voices. And so often in life, there's going to be different challenges. There's going to be different setbacks. The most successful people, the people who we might look to aspire to be, they've had different challenges that they've gone through, and it made them stronger, and it made their success sweeter. So I think for everybody in sports media, keep consuming all the different media that's out there, right? Keep developing their voice and study the people who they like, and then work to make it their own voice, because I really believe that how things are now, it's not going to keep being that way, and that there's going to be some great opportunities going forward. And interesting voices are always going to be so important. And that I think I can even think throughout my career, the roads I went on, I couldn't imagine. And I think that's part of the beauty sometimes, is how life plays out isn't how we picture it being. And so I think there's going to be some great opportunities, and that people, if they keep building their voice, there's going to be opportunities for those voices to be heard.
I truly thank you for those words of encouragement. It's one of those things, like you said, just keep being that voice and keep uplifting, keep helping. And that's really where we're at. If you've made it to see 2021, you're blessed. So we just have to do one day at a time. And I want to end it with one last thing. Super Bowl. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. Do you have a prediction? Technically, I don't think you have somebody in this one, but do you have a prediction on which way you're leaning?
I don't. So fortunately, I will enjoy the Super Bowl, and it can just be kind of emotionally even keel. I'm going Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to say 35-24. And I just think the Kansas City offense, with all the weapons, and Mahomes is the best quarterback there is, and between Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, they're so hard to stop. And I feel Brady has had some struggles against better defenses this year, and I think if KC can get to him a little bit, that can make it hard on Tampa Bay. It should be fascinating that it's kind of a home game for Tampa Bay, which we've never seen before in Super Bowl history, and maybe that plays more of a role than I'm giving it credit for. But I'm really excited for this one. I think it should be a lot of fun to watch.
I appreciate you for taking the time out today. I do. And we'll definitely touch bases more, but I truly thank you for taking the time out. So Seth Horwitz, Stephen Hayes, Beyond the Game. Thank you, buddy. Take care.
Thank you kindly.